When a struggling mechanic is paid in cash to restore a rusted blue Corvette, he thinks it's the job of a lifetime, until he discovers bloodstains, hidden photos, and a billionaire who will do anything to protect his secret. What Ethan uncovers inside this car will change his life forever and nearly cost him everything. In the quiet outskirts of Denton, Texas, the days often ended the same way for Ethan Cole. At 34, he was a mechanic with grease-stained hands, a tired smile, and a wallet that never seemed heavy enough. His small garage sat on the edge of town, a place where farmers brought in tractors and neighbors rolled up with old pickup trucks. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. On one chilly Thursday evening, just as Ethan was sweeping the shop floor, headlights cut across the lot. A large covered trailer rolled in and stopped outside. The driver, a man Ethan had never seen before, climbed out. He didn't say much, just handed Ethan a clipboard to sign, then motioned for the trailer door to be opened. What Ethan saw inside made his heart skip. Sitting there under a film of dust and rust was a Corvette Stingray, a classic from the late 1960s. Its once vibrant blue paint had dulled to the color of storm clouds. The chrome was eaten away by rust, the leather seats were shredded, and weeds had even grown through gaps in the bumper. It looked less like a car and more like a forgotten relic of another time. "Belongs to my employer," the driver muttered. "He wants it restored. No questions asked." He handed Ethan an envelope. Ethan's hands trembled as he tore it open. Inside was a stack of crisp 100 bills, $10,000 in cash. No contract, no instructions, just a folded note. "Restore this car to perfection. Don't ask questions." Ethan stood frozen, staring at the car. Jobs like this didn't land in his lap. He usually worked on oil changes and brake pads, not rare American muscle cars. And certainly not for customers who paid in cash, up front. The driver climbed back into his truck without waiting for a reply. "You'll be contacted when it's ready," he said flatly. Then the trailer pulled away, leaving the Corvette behind like a ghost from the past. Ethan touched the faded blue hood, dust clinging to his fingertips. For a man barely holding on to his livelihood, this car could mean survival, maybe even a fresh start. But deep down, he couldn't shake the unease gnawing at him. Why would anyone pay so much to fix a car in this condition? And why did it feel like the Corvette carried more than just rust in its bones? The first week of work on the Corvette was like peeling back the layers of a long-buried secret. Ethan rolled the Stingray into his shop and began stripping it down piece by piece. He expected the usual: rusted bolts, cracked hoses, worn-out parts. What he found instead sent shivers crawling up his spine. The driver's side door panel was the first oddity. As Ethan removed the screws and pulled the panel free, a dull clink echoed against the concrete floor. Hidden inside the hollow frame was a sealed envelope, yellowed with age. Inside were torn photographs. A tall man in an expensive suit standing beside a much younger woman. Their faces had been violently scratched out with thick black ink. Someone had wanted them erased, but not destroyed. Ethan frowned, slipping the photos into his toolbox. He told himself it wasn't his business, but he couldn't stop staring at them. 2 nights later, while pulling apart the Corvette's trunk, he noticed something else. The carpet lining was loose, its edges curling upward like it had been lifted before. Curious, Ethan tugged it back and felt a lump underneath. Taped to the metal was a small, heavy lockbox. No key, no markings, just cold steel sealed shut. Ethan held it in his hands for a long moment. The box was too deliberate, too carefully hidden to be an accident. He placed it on his workbench, telling himself he'd figure out how to open it later. That evening, as Ethan was locking up, his childhood friend Maya stopped by with coffee. She was the only one he trusted enough to share his discovery with. After showing her the box and the photographs, her face grew pale. "This doesn't feel right," she whispered. "People don't stash cash in envelopes and hide boxes in cars for good reasons. You should give this back, Ethan. Or better yet, walk away." Ethan laughed nervously, brushing off her warning. "I need the money, Maya. I can't afford to walk away." But deep down, her words stuck with him. The Corvette wasn't just a car, it was a message. And now that he'd opened its doors, he wasn't sure if he was fixing a vehicle or uncovering a crime. What Ethan didn't realize was that someone already knew he had found the box, and they weren't going to let him keep it. A week after the Corvette first arrived, Ethan's quiet life took a darker turn. It was just past noon when he noticed a black limousine idling across the street from his garage. The tinted windows gave nothing away, but its presence in his small, dusty town was impossible to ignore. Nobody drove limousines here, not unless they wanted to be noticed. The garage bell jingled, and in walked a man Ethan recognized instantly, even though he had never seen him up close before. Gregory Vance. Vance was a billionaire real estate tycoon whose name carried weight across the state. Newspapers painted him as a generous philanthropist. Locals whispered about his temper, his shady land deals, and the way people who crossed him seemed to disappear from town without explanation. Now, the man himself stood in Ethan's shop, perfectly pressed suit, silver cufflinks, and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I see you've been working on my car," Vance said, his voice smooth but commanding. He moved toward the Corvette like it was an old friend. His fingers traced the dusty hood before he turned sharply to Ethan. "You understand how rare this car is. I expect perfection." Ethan nodded, his palms slick with sweat. "Of course, sir. I'll have it ready as soon as I can." Vance stepped closer, lowering his voice. "One more thing. I trust you're not poking around where you shouldn't. Curiosity, Mr. Cole, is a dangerous habit." The words landed like a threat wrapped in silk. Ethan forced a nervous smile, saying nothing. Vance lingered a moment longer, his cold gaze locking onto Ethan as though he could read his very thoughts. Then, with a faint smirk, he slipped back into the limousine and was gone, leaving only the echo of his warning behind. That night, Ethan sat alone in his workshop, staring at the small lockbox he had hidden under his workbench. His hands shook as he wedged a crowbar beneath the lid and forced it open. The hinges groaned, and inside lay stacks of papers, bank statements tied to offshore accounts, receipts for massive wire transfers, and photographs of women whose faces he recognized from missing person posters. Ethan's heart pounded. This wasn't just about a car. He had stumbled into something vast, dangerous, and deadly. And Gregory Vance knew he was too curious to stop digging the night Ethan pried open that lockbox. His life changed. Sleep became impossible. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the photos of the missing women and the trail of dirty money that linked Gregory Vance to crimes far beyond small-town gossip. He wanted to believe it wasn't his problem, but he already knew too much. The next morning, Ethan told Maya everything. She listened carefully, her hands tightening around her coffee cup. "You have to take this to the police," she said firmly. "This isn't just shady business, it's criminal." Ethan shook his head. "And tell them what? That a billionaire who owns half this town hides evidence in a car? They'll laugh me out of the station. Or worse, word gets back to him." Maya didn't argue further, but he could see fear in her eyes. That week, strange things began to happen. One night, Ethan arrived at the garage to find the back door ajar, the lock snapped clean off. Tools were scattered across the floor, but nothing had been stolen. It wasn't a robbery, it was a warning. Another time, while driving home, Ethan spotted the same black SUV in his rearview mirror. No matter how many turns he made, the headlights stayed close. When he finally pulled into his driveway, the SUV slowed, then drove past without stopping. His chest tightened with dread. The worst came 3 days later. On his kitchen table lay a single sheet of paper, heavy with the smell of cigar smoke. Ethan hadn't left it there. Scrawled across the page in thick black marker were 7 chilling words: "Stop digging, or you'll be buried too." Ethan tried to steady his hands as he read it again and again. Someone had been inside his house, standing exactly where he was standing now. Still, he couldn't quit the job. He finished sanding down the Corvette's frame, working late into the night. But when he peeled back the carpet on the passenger side, his stomach dropped. Beneath the padding was a dark, stubborn stain, dried blood, soaked deep into the metal. Maya helped him dig through old news archives. It didn't take long for the pieces to fit. The Corvette once belonged to Samantha Grayson, a young heiress who had vanished 10 years earlier. The case had gone cold, but Ethan was staring at the evidence with his own eyes. The car wasn't just a restoration project. It was a trap, and Ethan was already caught in it. The day came when the Corvette was finally complete. Its body gleamed in a flawless shade of midnight blue, polished so smooth that it reflected the light like a mirror. For Ethan, Restoring the car should have been the proudest achievement of his career, but every time he looked at it, all he saw were the ghosts it carried. Gregory Vance called personally to arrange the delivery. His voice over the phone was calm, too calm, with an undertone that made Ethan's skin crawl. "Bring it to my estate. Tonight." Maya begged him not to go. "This isn't a handover, it's a setup. He knows you've seen too much." But Ethan couldn't back out. If he ran, Vance would hunt him down. If he delivered the car, maybe there was still a chance to expose the truth. Before leaving, he tucked the damning documents and duplicate photos inside the Corvette's glove box, just in case. The mansion loomed like a fortress at the end of a long gravel driveway, its windows glowing faintly in the night. Vance stood waiting in the garage, a glass of whiskey in hand, his smile sharp as a blade. "Magnificent," he whispered, circling the Corvette like a predator eyeing prey. "You've done well, Ethan. But tell me, did curiosity get the better of you?" Ethan swallowed hard, forcing a steady voice. "I fix cars, Mr. Vance. That's all." Vance chuckled softly, leaning closer. "Let's hope so. Otherwise, accidents happen." The air grew heavy. Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears. Then, before either man could speak again, flashing red and blue lights spilled across the driveway. Sirens wailed, shattering the silence. Police vehicles surrounded the estate. Officers poured into the garage, weapons drawn. Vance's glass shattered on the floor as two detectives closed in. "You're under arrest, Gregory Vance," one officer barked. "For murder, trafficking, and financial fraud." Ethan staggered back, stunned. Maya had gone to the police behind his back, handing over copies of the evidence. She had saved him. As they cuffed Vance, the billionaire turned his head, locking eyes with Ethan. A cold smile spread across his face. "This isn't over," he hissed. "Men like me don't stay locked up." The words sent a chill through Ethan's bones. The Corvette sat between them, gleaming in the flashing lights. A machine reborn, now a symbol of justice and corruption intertwined. Ethan had restored the car, but in doing so, he had exposed a billionaire's darkest secret. And though Vance was led away in chains, Ethan knew one thing for certain. Some secrets never stay buried forever.